All right. Let's talk about it. Somebody give me an example of a form that can be used to correct financial records. Let me unmute everybody. They're unmuted. What form can one use to correct financial information?
One, three, and a five.
Okay, so for the record, you're talking about a UCC1, a UCC3, and a UCC5, correct?
Correct.
That's the proper response. Uniform Commercial Code Financing Statement Form UCC1, UCC3s, and UCC5s can be used to correct financial information. Now let's just keep the text in that fold just to exploit this and see all the things that you guys can do from going from a civil law notary to an actual compliance officer. If you can correct, change financial information, what type of information can you correct, change, or amend with these type of forms? Give me an example of some information that you would correct, change, or amend. And everybody has been unmuted, so feel free to respond.
You able to repetition all of those bad contracts that you have out that's existing to bring your debt to income ratio in proper perspective.
Gotcha.
Assurance contracts, I should say.
Right. So literally, if your debt utilization exceeds 10% of your disposable income, you can use these financing statements to correct that debt to income ratio.
Correct.
And when reporting that on these financing statements, it go beyond just saying it has gone from one thing to the other. You have to demonstrate it. In commerce, is it ever what you put on paper that determines who you are, or it depends on your actions in commerce that determines who you are?
No, it's your actions that determine who you are.
Okay, so your paperwork should only be a memorialization of your actions. Your actions should demonstrate that you are a creditor. I don't have to see that you're a creditor on paper. I can look at your ledger. I can look at your noting and minuting. I can look at how you move in commerce, and I can determine from your actions that you are a creditor. Now, if that's the premise for a creditor, what if they have in documentation they're a creditor, but their actions don't demonstrate that? Isn't that merit? Right. Isn't that merits for arbitration?
Absolutely.
Okay, so someone is saying they're a creditor. They're a creditor. They don't have an active UCC. But the minute you miss a payment, they're saying they're going to report it on your credit. And they do. They didn't report all those positive credit payments you was making, but the minute you was late, the very next month, you got a ding on your credit. Now, according to FTC and FCC rules and regulations, isn't that a violation? Isn't that a violation of the Truth in Lending Act?
For sure.
Isn't that a violation of the Fair Credit Act?
Most definitely.
It's reported.
How long does it take for debt to actually be reported on the ledger as a debt? So that means you got 90 days from your first late pay for that to show up on your credit. So we have gotten so relaxed and not reading the details that we, listen to this, not the companies, they're not the bad guy. They just, they're real good at playing the bad guy. But you're tethering yourself to the system. You're tethering yourself to this prison. You got a key to leave this prison anytime you want, but you're going to prison every night complaining when you got the key in your back pocket. Because if you got the key, that means you got to turn the key, you're going to have to plat your escape, you got to do some stuff. It's easy to just lay on your back and complain about how bad it is. Watch this now. Somebody who ain't been in the prison long as you, they're like, man, this is for the birds. I'm out of here. Guess what most people do like crabs in a bucket? Convince the person who want to leave the prison, man, you better not do that. I wouldn't do that if I was you. I don't know what he was doing. Watch this. When the guard come by, man, I heard you trying to leave. Don't that sound like our people?
Every day.
Okay. So they have this system of creditors and debtors down to a science where you ain't even got to worry about them. You got to worry about your own fellow debtor. Your debtor, look, when an inmate escapes prison, who do they send to go get the inmate? All right, let me be real clear. A prisoner escapes from prison, and the governor of that state, who signs pardons and parole, who's ultimately responsible for every man and woman that is incarcerated. If one of these men and women escape that prison, who is supposed to be out there in helicopters with an APB? Who's supposed to be out there? If the governor is responsible for it, who's supposed to be out there looking?
The governor.
The governor, right? Is the governor, if you escape from prison, is the governor out looking for you?
Mm-hmm.
Who's out there looking for you?
Other inmates.
Okay. Other inmates, police,
The sheriff.
all these people that he got on his payroll. So in that situation, who's the creditor and who's the debtor? The warden and the governor are the creditors, and everybody else who's going to lose their job if they don't find you before next count, they're going to be liable. See how that system works?
So the debtor just hold the liability, baby.
The debtor is the money. The debtor is the equivalent of the tennis ball in the tennis match. That's what the debtor is. He's an instrument. In the game of commerce, you're the tennis ball. And in the game of tennis, your job is to get smacked, right? By everybody. You know, hell, if you get thrown in the crowd, you might get smacked in. The tennis ball, he was designed to get smacked. I'm just saying, as a former tennis ball, one day you're going to get smacked so hard, you're going to wake up and be like, I don't want to do this no more. You start believing, I don't think I was supposed to be a tennis ball. I knew I didn't fit in the can with the rest of them anyway. I knew something was wrong. One day you're going to work up enough nerve to get off the plantation. Now, for most people who are taught symmetric information, their job is to keep you what? On the plantation. See, when you become a creditor, what do you think you have to do as far as actions commercially to demonstrate that you're a creditor? I'll give it to you. From my own personal experience in this information, being a compliance officer, working as a civil law notary, the very first thing this system is going to test you on, if you're saying you're a creditor, is have you forgiven your brother's debt? They want to see evidence of that. Do you understand what I mean when I say that? Let me explain to you what I mean. When you get this information, you were supposed to totally restore your estate. And even though you can justify, you can get really into your emotions and your feelings and really want to become a vigilante and belligerent to government, and you want to go riding around screaming F the police, and you can really justify a lot of it because they did do a lot of stuff. But when you're a creditor, the first thing you do is when you know that's what they did to you and your family, is that you realize that you're strong enough, independent enough, and smart enough to design your own paradise. And I don't need a system. I just need to be smart enough to put them on notice that my system is just as important as theirs. So the first thing I'm going to do, see, when you get out of that prison, is you're going to recoup all your commercial energy. The first thing I did when I came out of prison is I recouped every day that I've ever was on probation, parole. I did it all through a 1099 OID. And when I recouped that credit, I ain't looked back. I wasn't finna go and conform to that bullshit. Now I got police, lawyers, you name it, in my bloodline. But see, when you wake up with the devil, when you eat dinner with the devil, when you live with the devil for 7 years straight, ain't nobody got to convince you that the devil is real, because you know he real, because you seen him. You fellowship with him. You know he exists. I don't need no book, no song, no seance. I know that he exists. and he is doing his thing. And what I mean by that is, because I understand it, coming back out, the people that so-called conscious, awake, law-abiding citizens, I realize there's a much bigger prison out here than it is in there. But guess what? It's a commonality in all prisons. All prisons I ever been to, even in prison, they got trustees. When that fundamental proponent, it seeped in, I realized that a lot of people are being trained in trusteeship the opposite way. You got this government construct that has been a belligerent debtor. Listen to this. This country, the United States, you do understand that this is not a creditor nation, right? How many of you guys understand that? Like, listen to me real carefully. The United States is not a creditor nation.
Right. They don't pay their debts.
They're not. They are a belligerent debtor nation. Since they were on the map, they have been in debt ever since, and they're in debt now. All wars are bankers' wars. The only reason why you ain't seen no Asian and Chinamen in your backyard is because they trying to figure out what to do with all these people when they do show up.
They better not come over here with that shit.
Listen to me carefully. There are more Asians, quote unquote, of that descent. They have more people in their standing army than you have United States citizens. Their standing army has more people in it than the people that occupy this country.
Mm-hmm.
So they're playing chess. We real good at checkers and kickball. We're real good at that. That's just not the game. When the Romans said feed them bread and keep them entertained. We have been on that algorithm for a long time. Look, we ain't telling our sons and daughters to become engineers and scientists. We're saying, get sucked up into the social media buffoonery. That's how you get famous and make money. Quote unquote, commercially, the gap between what's real and what's not is only getting wider. And so, in what we do, because it's gotten so wide, it's real easy for you to exist and do what you do as far as correcting these records. Do you think the DTCC and DTC is doing more business or less business? Do you think they're doing more business, right?
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Okay. If they're doing more business, that means if you are competent, conscious, and you are a compliance officer, that means you're supposed to be what? More busy too, right?
That's right.
You're the yin and the yang now. They're going to do their thing, you're going to do your thing, and then the people are just going to have to make a choice. How many of you guys that got your M3 assets have figured out how to tether it to your silver and gold yet? How many guys have figured that out yet? Like you've already done kind of simulated in your head, like, I think I know how this go.
I think I have.
Tell me what you got. Tell me what you think.
Add it to your ledger.
Okay. Let's talk about it practical. When you got it on your ledger, tell me how what you got on your ledger equivalates to you controlling a resource.
Because that resource on your ledger as well, you're going to have the financial statement showing that equity.
Okay, give me something practical that substantiates and implements that. How would you implement having gold and silver on your ledger and acquiring a resource?
Trust minute.
A what?
Trust minute.
Trust minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You're going to need more than a trust minute to control a resource. So, like, walk me through it like I'm a 3-year-old. Like, okay, you got the trust minutes. The trust minutes say you have this asset in trust. Now, this asset in trust, how does that equivalent to you acquiring the resource?
The value associated with the asset.
Okay, the value that's associated with the resource is on the ledger as what?
A general intangible.
A general intangible what?
Payable.
Okay, so the value that's on your book is a general intangible payable. All right, now, who are you paying?
I mean, it depends on what we're trying to do with it. What we're trying to do with it. Trying to get a
okay,
profit.
so right, you said a resource, so I assume you already had a resource picked out. So
okay. Let's say land.
Okay. How are you buying this land? Are you buying this land from someone that's in a mortgage? Are you buying it from a bank? Are you buying it from, what's the status of the real estate?
Well, mortgage like a broker, like a real estate company that sell land.
Okay. How did the real estate company even get the real estate?
I'm saying, how do they even get it? Through the
How
bank?
did they end up with the possession of the real estate?
I'm not sure how to answer that.
Okay, let me. I'm being a little too secular. Let me step up another level.
Okay.
If the land that my mother was born on, it had approximately 5,200 elements when she was born.
Right.
I am her oldest son. I'm 50, going on 51 years old.
Okay.
When I was born, there was 5,300 elements in the land. Now that I'm getting ready to have my first great grandchild, the land still has 5,300 elements in it.
All right.
Now we done built a whole bunch of stuff on top of it, and we got this, that, and the other. But the elements of the land is the same as it was when Mom had me.
Okay.
So the allodial value of the property stayed the same. But what was built on top of it is part of this, let's pretend, fictitious commercial game that we call monopoly.
Okay.
So when I ask you as a man of the land of substance, how are you going to convey certain things? Or you think I'm talking about what's on the surface or what I'm talking about that's underneath the surface?
Underneath?
Okay, so let's apply that to your transaction.
Okay.
If you put it in trust, now you're underneath. Now you're dealing with substance.
Right.
How are you going to acquire this property?
I mean, I don't know how to answer that. I don't get what you mean. How am I going to acquire?
As a trustee, a trustee has divested himself of the asset. The asset belongs to the trust.
Right.
So how are you, if it belongs to the trust, how are you going to interact with an object that has its own rules, regs, and this, that, and the other? What is
become a beneficiary of the trust? So you're gonna have to become into some type of agreement, a contract with that trust.
Right. Let me help you out because you're there. I don't want to make it hard for you. I want to make it easy for you. Let's make the transaction easy. Question number one. The person who you're getting this property from, we're going to just use this for illustration purposes. We're going to say that this property is being sold is attached to a mortgage company where somebody has a mortgage on it.
All right.
But they want to sell it because the person who's in it can't afford the mortgage no more.
Okay.
So now you stroll along and you decide that you want to take a stab at it. Now, when you're on the surface, I can go for the next 10 minutes telling you what application to fill out, what loan program to qualify for, this, that, and the other. But for foundational purposes, because you want it simple, as the fiduciary of the trust, all you have to do is have the seller of that property agree. I'm going to lean into what you were saying because I know I'm going to help you up for the recording. The seller of the property has to agree to sell that trust, that property, as a beneficiary of the trust. And then you, acting as a trustee in that trust, you're going to provide the conveyance. But the conveyance was authored by the settler of the trust. The settler placed value inside the trust and divested himself of it. Then you, as the trustee of the trust, you become a fiduciary on behalf of the trust to convey that value to the seller. The seller agreed to sell you the property while being a beneficiary in the trust. So the only thing that happened was the seller took the M3 asset out of his right pocket, gave it to the trustee. The trustee showed the seller the M3 asset that the seller signed. The trustee put the asset back in his left pocket. That's the transaction. Do you understand why I'm saying what I'm saying?
I'm following you.
So once the trust has done all of that, now everybody else is just getting what? Tax forms and notices. Because the deal has already been what? Done.
Done.
We get into these other conversations. This is why I say use arbitration to clean up all that fuzziness out there, because I can be your arbitrator and tell people in the public, because everybody love to be told what to do. They don't want to go do stuff. They want to be told. I have no problem telling you what to do. But we got to do it through arbitration. That's why when you go to a public tribunal, what do they tell you when you say stuff? What's that speech they give you about saying stuff and how it's going to be used when you say stuff?
Used against
What
you.
they tell you?
They can and will be used against you.
All right, so they tell you it can and will. All right, listen to this, y'all. The public tells you that when you do stuff and you say stuff, what you say can and will be used against you. So when you say it and when they use it against you, who is wrong in that contract?
Who is wrong in it when they?
Yeah. Listen how it goes now. I hear it all the time in commerce. Everybody emotionally correct. Oh, they did this wrong. You're emotionally correct, commercially wrong. Because they told you. You go out there jaw jacking. This is what's going to happen. You're going to say tomatoes. We're going to say potato. Bomb. And you wondering why you got a knot inside your head. They told you before it happened what was going to happen. It shouldn't have been a surprise. We get surprised all the time, though. I can't believe, man, they just messing with me. Okay. I told you in every prison they have trustees. You know what trustees get to do in prison when everybody else on lockdown? What trustees get to do in prison? Right, they get to move and shake.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just saying, this is a prison. You want to go back to your cell, or do you want to move and shake? What you want to do? What you want to do?
I want to move and shake.
Okay. Notice in prison how the administration treats the trustees. Everybody else, they talk to you like you're dirt, like you're scum, like you're lower than a felon, because when you're an inmate and you've been deemed as a convicted felon, that's like less than being a human. But when you're a trustee, they start calling you by your first name. They start letting you have free world privileges, like even though you ain't supposed to have the cell phone, you can use it. Or even though everybody else is eating that other stuff, this is what I bought from you from the store. You start getting, what are those things? What is that called? Those privileges, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you want the privilege of being treated as a creditor, you got to first sign up to be a trustee. That means you're going to have to get up before the rest of the inmates. You're going to have to provide the cleaning, the cooking. You're going to have to what? Put in some work for that privilege. Am I losing anyone in this? Am I losing anyone?
No, I'm with you.
Okay. As a compliance officer, it's just an added status that you can use to have more privileges. It's an added status that lets you utilize those privileges. As a notary, when you determine what's an M3 asset and it can be distributed through a K1, what type of institutions can utilize a K1 on their balance sheet? Give me a type of institution that can use a K1 on their balance sheet.
Banking institution.
Okay. Give me another institution that can use a K1 on their balance sheet.
Nigga don't know the half of it, boy.
I mean, that would be corporations.
Beautiful. Okay, corporation. All right, give me another example. We got corporations, we got banks. Who else?
Privateers.
Privateers. All right. Somebody been reading some redemption manual information. I hear you. That's a good way to look at it. Privateers. K1 disbursements can be used by anyone that's practicing generally accepted accounting principles. This is how you use this to your advantage when everybody's supposed to be doing accounting. You ask them, are you operating under current expected credit loss provisions or are you in compliance? They'll say, well, I don't know what CECL is. Well, let me ask this. The way you're operating your business, are you in compliance with generally accepted accounting principles? If you're in compliance, then you should be able to accept this K1. You can't, you totally get around, them not doing the conveyance when they have to operate under generally accepted accounting principles if they are a corporation, a legal entity, this, that, and so forth. Let me give you one that most people ain't really heard me say, but it's implied. Insurance companies take K1.
Goddamn, or she had called James on.
Is that right? Well,
insurance companies are in the space where they are governed and they are under a certain perspective where they have to accept K1s as a form of payment. This is why it only costs 1%. This is why they'll tell you to bring 1% in fiat. The other 99 can be done in lawful legal money, in equity. That's to pay for the paper and the ink. You follow me? You pay for the cost of publishing. Equity pays for the rest of it. Just like let me kind of give you the scenario, guys. When you become a civil law notary, a compliance officer, learning how to do these processes and doing process serving, in Florida, you become like the guys that are here practicing HVAC. These guys are so busy during the summer month because it gets hot as Hades down here in Florida. They don't care about the economy. A person who's doing air conditioning is making a six-figure income here in Florida. If he's really on his grind doing heating and air, he's on it. He ain't watching no news. He ain't catching no football games. All he's worrying about is that when the phone rings, who needs some Freon, air conditioning, this, that, and the other. They work year round, and business is good. That's what you guys are the equivalent of in the legal profession when you're correcting records. There's so much misrepresentation, miscalculation, underreporting, overreporting. It's job security for you. You just have the ability with this new AI technology to create your own system, your own storehouse. I said in the previous class, name some necessities that you need to do your business. Well, as a compliance officer, dealing with the ability to do arbitration, process serving, and administrative processes, what is one of the things you think you need in order to do that in this present day construct? What do you think you need? I'll go a different direction so you understand this. If you are in this training, you're going to need an AI tool. You're going to need some sort of website interface, and you're going to need some sort of CRM to onboard your clients. All of that you have because you've been exposed to Bittrex for the last 6 months. You know how to navigate this Bittrex platform. And if you've already started assimilating your data sets with these manuals that you're purchasing, you have everything you need. There are records that are out there that need to be corrected for proper M3 conveyances. And every M3 asset that you create, the system is able to repartition and create from it as well. Every time you don't use an M3 asset, you're actually adding to the debt clock. So there's a different allegory for you. They got an allegory for the manufacturing of tennis balls because they are being used to play the tennis match. Now, if you're a tennis ball, you're just going to be used until all your fuzziness wear off, and then you're discarded. If you want to play the game of tennis, you're trying to pick a side and a skill set where you can outmatch the opponent. Keep in mind that this commercial game is just that. And the creators of this game are being entertained financially by your participation in it. The game consists of creditors and debtors. If you're playing the game of commerce, one player being the debtor, the other player being the creditor, and if you had to weigh statistics, who has the higher statistics? Is there more creditors playing the game, the monopoly game of commerce and winning versus the debtors, or is there more debtors playing the commercial game of commerce and outpacing the creditors? I think if you look around globally, if you look around statistically, you'll be able to answer that question very quickly just by observing the commercial constructs. It is very easy to see that asymmetric information in this digital age is going to be more valuable now than it ever was before. I am watching AI technology being used to create the next new level of asymmetric information. It is an actual truth that people 20 years today know less than those individuals that graduated 20 years ago. Because if you're going to master a skill set, instead of going to college for a curriculum, you may need to visit a local trade school and master a trade. See, there's still trades that computers won't quite be able to do. That's why they haven't been heavily populating and pushing those type of trades. If you find yourself in an algorithm where a computer can actually do your job better than you, you might need to visit a trade school and master a trade where this technology can be an enhancement. But again, these are two different conversations, two different allegories. We're talking about civil law notaries being a compliance officer. And a civil law notary has the ability now to use arbitration and sell it to lawyers and alike because they can't arbitrate. They can only litigate. See, litigators want to become arbitrators. That's the asymmetric information inside of the legal profession. Is lawyers are figuring out how to use this AI to do arbitration. And if they already got a group of civil law notaries that already know the ropes and are familiar with the American Arbitration Association, well, you won't have to look for them. They'll look for you. All your cases that you arbitrated become private cases that can be sold. Literally, it's like this. We're disseminating these cases into case syllabuses that are basically high-level, high-functioning ebooks that can be attached to a computer data set and monetized. And just like a CD, when you leave, your music leaves with you. When you leave, your data set leaves with you. Compliance officers should be able to monetize cases just as fast as the AI can transcribe the actual dialogue. And that algorithm can be affixed to a Bloomberg equation. A Bloomberg equation can be tied into a Dun and Bradstreet API. A Dun and Bradstreet API can then be sent throughout the entire DTCC construct. The data set that goes into the court registry investment system is governed under the depository corporation. And all credits that are being pushed, paid, disseminated are being pushed through the security settlement system, like the Euroclear, through a DTCC system, which stands for the Depository Trust Clearing Corporation. One system puts it in partitions, the other clears it and distributes. And it is essential that you understand the distinction between the two. I'm giving you a lot of information that if you really look at it and examine it, it'll be really clear on how you implement. But I, by no means, when you come into trustee training, when you come into compliance officer training, when you step into this envelope, we're going to assign you your own Bitrix space. We're going to give you the tools to earn revenue, because we're going to allow you to become brokers with Go Capital and companies like NAC, so you can generate a revenue. And then you're going to use what you're learning in this space to help everyone, including yourself and your family. But you can only lead a horse to water. You can't make him or her drink it. You can't want it more than them. They have to want it just as bad as themselves. They have to be willing to invest into their own private education. My question to the class is that if you have a pretty good fundamental idea of what we're learning and implementing, then do we have any questions upon how does a compliance officer utilize the skill set of a civil law notary to do X, Y, and Z? At this portion of the class, I would love to entertain for the next 30 minutes those type of questions, which will allow us to exploit and explore those opportunities. But I'll digress, and I'll open the floor for questions. Let me open it up again. Let me unmute everyone and see if we got any questions. Everybody's unmuted. And at this time, I'm asking, do you have any questions over anything we covered up until this point? Any questions? Everybody's mic has been unmuted, so I'm opening you up for questions.
I have a question.
Sure.
With the real estate transaction,
right?
When the seller
say that again. Hold on, let me unmute you. All right, say that again, bro, because you went out.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. In a real estate transaction, when the seller comes in and plays, they convey the property as a beneficiary, and we do the conveyance on that side. Those are the private records, and on the public side is the K-1 disbursement to whichever institution that is or corporation that is governed by GAAP, that you can convey that K-1.
Okay.
That is what you're saying.
Correct.
The K-1, is that to be dispersed to the courts? How do we convey that?
If the institution is going to be receiving it is a competent fiduciary, then the K-1 is handed directly to the institution. If the institution isn't a competent fiduciary, then you hand it to the court.
Okay.
Yes.
And then handing it to the court what does that look like? How do we convey that? Is that a filing?
Yep, that's a filing. That's the sandwich where you got the transmittal, UCCs, letters of credit,
Okay.
transmittal bond.
Okay. So then the K1 becomes a part of the sandwich in order to be able to convey that to them, and then
the K1 the K1 is the M3 asset. It's like the instrument goes back to the trust, and the K1 is what everybody else uses because they got to get it out of the treasury now.
Right. I got you. I was just trying to get you clear on that.
Right.
You sure you ain't got my phone, man?
All right. Any other questions? Any other questions?
I got another question.
Sure.
And in dealing with a dealership in a vehicle transaction,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to see how to have a conversation with one of those salesmen in respect to being able to have that invoice drawn up for commercial activity to be able to tie that in with Go Capital.
Okay. Easiest conversation you can have, introduce yourself as a broker with these lending institutions, and then lean into how the transaction needs to go from your resources. And then it's just a matter of structuring it from that standpoint. Basically, you introduce yourself as John Doe. I work for Go Capital and North Avenue Capital. I am in need of a vehicle for business purposes, but I must have this vehicle sold in this type of position. Do you have anyone there that can assist me with this acquisition? This is being recorded so you can just, listen to how I'm saying it and then, go from there. Something along that line should get somebody's attention, and then you enter into dialogue. Then everything that you enter into is a matter of just drafting it. So I would already have my contracts already drafted on what I'm looking to acquire it, and I just need someone to be able to look over it to see if, if they're able to meet that requirement. Now, if you go inside of DuPont Registry deals with trusts more so than just civilians. They're more familiar with K1 disbursements and bills of exchanges. Like, my mentor, when he did the whole breakdown on how to acquire luxury automobiles, he was leaning into what we've all discussed a while back with these things are technically supposed to be done by trust, and they're an institution that solely rock in that space. See, when you're dealing with Lamborghinis and Ferraris and Porsches, they see a lot of bills of exchanges and M3 conveyances. When you're buying a Ford or a Toyota, they don't see a lot of that. You understand where I'm going with this?
I sure do.
So you have to market it to where it's most applicable.
Exactly.
Now, I'm going to play the race card just for conversation purposes. Now, if you go there looking a certain type way, you can buy your Ford pickup truck just like, you can do it with a bill of exchange. It works the same way. See, it's never that you can. It's just the person on the other end of it, they're stopping your conveyance because they may not understand or may not want to understand what you're doing.
Exactly.
Now, again, how you get everybody in your favor is make them benefit from what you're doing. The path of least resistance is giving everybody a piece of what you're doing. I mean, I've seen salesmen, like the last salesman that my family member dealt with, didn't have no idea it was going to be an M3 conveyance and had no idea how this stuff worked. But when he realized he can get about $1,500 extra out of it, he had no problem with putting it together and doing it. He understood the extra $1,500 in his pocket. He understood that. That part.
That part.
Right.
All right.
But that'll work. That'll work. I love the questions. Keep them coming. Anybody has any other questions? Most of you guys have been unmuted, but you may need to press 9-4 on your keypad to kind of like raise your hand, and I can unmute you and bring you in. But everybody technically has been, I think, unmuted for them to ask questions. But if you are trying to ask a question and you're not being able to, just press 9-4 on your keypad and I'll bring you in. But I'm looking for more questions pertaining to the ability to convey from that civil law notary compliance officer position when it comes to acquisitions and so forth. Do we have any other questions? Now, I'm just warning, if I don't have any questions, I'm either doing a really good job or you trying to wait to hold me hostage when you get me on the phone. Which it'll be easier for me to go ahead and tell you now than trying to catch me in the interim. Any of Sure, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
My question is really quick.
No, come on.
Mr. Bay, what do you recommend for a student like myself? You know my business profile and stuff. Like, I'm just going to put myself out here as an example. So maybe you can give everybody some clarity on what they need to do. Because I need fast funding. And from what you know about my business profile, what is the best path, like starting in the morning?
Okay, starting in the morning. The best way to acquire funding in your business is your profile. The only thing is missing, in my opinion, is a strategic partner that has what you don't possess. And what I mean by that is, okay, you could literally go on DealStream tonight. There is on the bottom. I think I can share my screen. So hold on for a second. I'm gonna show you exactly.
Well, that would be great. Yeah.
Let me show you where to go at on DealStream, because there's a link on DealStream where you can go. Now I'm gonna go to it first, and then I'm gonna share the screen so I can find it pretty quickly. But when you go to DealStream.com, you're going to see where it says funding sources. You're going to see the source at the bottom of the page. You're going to see where it's going to have a search, and it's going to say businesses for sale, and then it's going to say funding sources. You toggle on that tab, and when you toggle on that tab, you're going to get about 600 entities and their contacts and what they're looking for. These are going to be sources that offer funding and sources that are looking for funding. And I would literally match up those things. Now, when I'm looking on these things, like I'm looking at a bridge loan, short-term mortgage financing that is in place between the termination of one loan and the beginning of another, also a form of an interim loan generally made between a short-term loan and a permanent loan when the borrower needs to have more time before taking long-term finances. What I would do with this request is contact this individual because he needs a bridge loan, and I would use my credentials with Gold Capital and North Avenue Capital to fit myself into that algorithm. Now, because now you have a product that can provide these bridge loans through arbitration, you're able now to generate some very quick revenue, because if you bring this institution in as a strategic partner where you have a contract to be able to use their credentials on your balance sheet, you can do what they call an LBO. I'm recommending that your company utilize a leverage buyout scenario for fast funding, because those things can come in a matter of days and weeks versus months. So your company, in my opinion, should go through this DealStream scenario, find a potential candidate, and then offer them a leverage buyout. Now, That means they get what they want because you're going to arbitrate it. They're going to pay you to assist, and you're able to use the credit on your books for lending with your institution.
How do I introduce the arbitration through the contract?
Basically, through the contract, you include an arbitration clause in the contract.
Right.
And then after the contract is endorsed, and you expound on how leveraging arbitration becomes an asset.
And I can make it mandatory to do the deal, right? Like,
of course.
I can just provide the explanation as a courtesy, but
you explain. I give you a recommendation. When I want to enforce arbitration, I make it mandatory that if you're not in compliance to handle an M3 conveyance, then we're going to have to use arbitration to get this across the wire.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And that's I don't have very much resistance when I mandate it because they don't have the credentials. That's how you do it. So it's no resistance.
Do I introduce the parties to each other, or
after you get the contract set, get everybody signed?
Get them signed. Okay. Gotcha.
Once you get everybody signed, then you can start that process.
Yeah, because I went through a webinar with Fulton County procurement. They got some grants out, right? And they're making a strict can't talk to each other clause.
Right.
To even you can't communicate.
Right.
They don't even really want you to ask them any questions. It was almost like that, and I was just like, whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they have non-disclosures like that.
I asked whether I should let people talk to each other or not, because it seemed like
what you do is you have them sign a non-disclosure. That's why you set up your own environment.
You can't trust ninjas with no non-disclosure. Okay.
Right. So this is why you bring them into a space like Bitrix where you can control the narrative. That's how you.
But what keeps Bitrix people from talking to each other?
Nothing other than the fact that it's asymmetric information in Bitrix they got to interact with.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the stuff that they need to get their deals done is going to be in Bitrix. They can't get it nowhere else. It don't exist. You create a system of systems where what they're needing, they're going to have to go down this 1, 2, 3 path. Now they can talk about how they're going to get to 1, 2, and 3 in their interim, but it only can be implemented through the space.
That's so. Mm-hmm.
Right. And again, here's how you really seal it. Like, I know you're in the process of becoming a notary, but if you snap that button, become a notary, and become the broker with both these agencies,
they gonna bother me too. Okay, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty much why I pretty much haven't been pressing the gas, because there's a lot of hats to wear.
Right. Just what you do is you press the gas on being a notary, become the broker, and then you don't have to say a whole lot anymore. Your credentials are.
But if notaries are in the class, I want to partner up.
Yes, that's the whole point. Yeah, we need you to be a notary so you can partner up in this higher interim. That's the advantage, because see, you don't have to rely on the court.
Everybody's notary is a notary.
Most of the folks that are in this space are notaries or notaries in training. Right.
Okay.
So that's the whole purpose of becoming a notary, is that it's about your commercial registry. That's your system. That's your arbitration platform, your journal. That's why you become a notary, become the broker. Now contact the individuals that want money and orchestrate the problem, reaction, solution. Their problem is they're in their head. Their problem is that they don't have money. The reality of it is, it's not that they don't have it. They just don't know how to recover it. They don't know how to recapture it. They don't know how to utilize what they've already spent. See, all you're doing is you're putting insurance on the money they've already spent. That's how they're able to get the loans. You're taking what they've already spent, putting a figure to it, and putting an insurance policy around it.
Your new class of students, they must be credit ready.
A lot of them are coming in credit ready.
Yeah.
A lot of them. Right. And that goes with the algorithm, because a lot of people that are resonating with this information, when they come through the various different YouTube and different sites, they're already in. Like we got a gentleman right now, I don't want to put him on blast, but he's from Chicago, and he's already a notary. He's been kind of just been plugging in on the YouTube side, and this is like his first day listening. And I have a lot of students who are coming in through that algorithm that way. Any other questions? I love the questions. Any other questions?
We're able to convey K1s to, other entities that the trust controls as well.
Correct.
Can we K1 each other in this space?
That would be ideal.
Okay.
You think?
Yeah.
That would be ideal. That would be ideal. All right, look. Any other questions, comments, or concerns of anything you've heard up until this point?
I want to elaborate on that K1 to K1 because I never even thought about it.
I'm telling you, look, I was over here like, let me.
Wait a minute, man.
It just say anonymous on the screen, so I wasn't sure. I'm like, who is that?
Easy. Hello?
Yeah,
I'm here.
I can hear you, brother. Talk to me.
Okay, yeah. So, with becoming a civil law notary, you have to have prior knowledge in these other processes in order to have it as an addition to the arbitration process in dealing with, your whole brokerage and, facilitate deals.
Let me break it down to you. To become a civil law notary in this space, as long as you're a notary in good standings, we provide the training through the American Arbitration Association that gets you those credentials. So there's a training, like there's about 7 videos that you'll watch that basically take what you already are doing as a notary, but it brings you up to speed on the American Arbitration Association proponent for arbitration. Once you have those videos under your belt, I provide you a certificate of completion. That certificate of completion lets you participate in an apprenticeship program, which is a combination of these type of classes and audio, which you must have 690 hours of continuing ed to be considered a civil law notary practitioner. So you just need to be able to have the training and the hours. And part of those hours are cases. So it's like you get the training, you get the credentials, you sign up, become brokers and this, that, and the other. Now you need deals to fund and cases to arbitrate. That becomes part of your educational field. When you're doing that, you're operating, even though you are a notary in good standing in your state, when you do notarial acts, you're acting as a civil law notary, and that's the magic. So it's a matter of just having the information, the materials, and we provide that in our training.
Okay, so would I have to get with, call you later and get all that?
Yes.
And get...
Yes, literally what I'll do is just give me a call right after class. I'll go ahead and give you your login credentials, let you know the costs associated with getting enrolled and all that good stuff, and we'll get you off to the races, big bro.
Okay.
All righty. I love the questions. Anyone else has any questions, comments, or concerns about anything they've heard up until this point dealing with civil law notary, going from that to a compliance officer?
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
I have another question.
Sure.
Do you have to have like your whole trust setup and, because I was listening to, the whole Chris thing, and I'm not familiar with it, but it seemed like it had components of trust actions. So
right.
do you all provide like tutelage in that aspect?
Correct. We provide correct. We provide tutelage and education because we do provide trustee training and trust education. So my job is to make sure as a compliance officer, you are being trained to operate as a fully functioning settler and or trustee in your fiduciary capacity. Because these are things that all fall into this space that we're talking about. So you will be able to assist in all those areas because we provide a full-fledged education component in that.
Oh, okay. That's it.
All righty. Keep them coming. Anybody else got any other questions, comments, or concerns over anything you heard up until this point? Now, I'll just recap if I don't have any questions so everybody's clear on what you've learned or in the aspect of the interim between both spaces today. In both classes, once you have utilized the space and aligned yourself with all these credentials, this becomes part of your professional resume. And this professional resume, just like a balance sheet, should have a certain value associated with it. The mere fact that you're able to move M3 assets in this capacity for collateralization gives you the ability, in the aspect of lending, to provide suretyship. When you're providing suretyship, it takes away the risk when it comes to loans and lending, and it provides reinsurance to the lender. You're selling reinsurance to the lender. If that becomes your mantra, then being a compliance agent is looking for corporations and entities that have general liability insurance who wants to figure out how to make a portion of that insurance policy liquid. That really changes the demographics with you. And so now anyone else that falls into that interim or below or, within it, you're able to service. Being a compliance officer allows a notary who would normally just be dealing with civilians and individuals on a lower scale to deal directly in small and mid-cap arrangements. Just like the example that you heard me give one of the students dealing with DealStream. There are institutions that are looking for funding. There are corporations that are looking for loans. They have equities. They have balance sheets. They just are looking for competent fiduciaries to help structure the deal. If you go back to this audio, you will listen to one of the examples I gave of a bridge loan that's being requested as we speak in DealStream, where they're needing someone to perform arbitration to get them these succession of loans. So,
yeah, I'm looking at that one right now.
Right, it's all around you. It's just your training has equipped you to look at the things not from a half empty perspective, but from a half full scenario. Arbitration is the ability to go from a creditor to a debtor and to a debtor to a creditor. So use that interchangeably to be the change that you want to see. For anyone else who wants to learn more, who was brought into this space, what I'm going to ask is that, I appreciate everybody's level of participation. This class, like the many others, are being re-disseminated and retranscribed through our AI technology. It'll be to your advantage to review this class again and again and again, especially with the AI tools, because if you listen long enough, you'll learn something. And again, the more you learn, the more you'll earn. There's no excuse why none of you guys at the end of this month should not be on track in the next 30 days to minimally secure over $400,000 in funding, not only for your own institution, but for others. Let that be an average that you target because of the structure that you're stepping into. Now, again, if and I'm trying to give you like a gauge here. We're going to say that Go Capital does $25,000 and up. On each product, you have different products that Go Capital offer in different loan sizes. Just like North Avenue Capital have different loans and loan sizes. Take your AI, list every loan product that they have between North Avenue Capital and Go Capital, and have the AI create you an itinerary and an outline. And I guarantee you, if you follow that outline, it'll take your revenue to the next level. The only way it don't, if you just don't do it. The information is there. Now remember, you got fiduciaries that are in the space that have information that you need. You know, some of them have already invested into, they have different data sets. That's the other thing. So definitely get with the other fiduciaries that are in your class, because a lot of individuals, they have the banking platform information. They have everything that you need. It's just a matter of getting into a dialogue and start working together to get this stuff done. I hope this class helped everybody. If you got any other questions after class, like most people do, feel free to just drop it inside the chat. I'm going to be working with another class here shortly in the office, so I'm trying to get everything prepped for that. But if you need me, number where I can be reached is area code 407-792-2774. Stay locked in. Don't forget now, don't slack off on listening to the podcast on WTDTAradio.caster.fm, because I promise you, if you're not engaged in this, you're going to miss something. And something in this class is going to be directly be tied into something that's being broadcast in that podcast. With that, I appreciate everybody's time and energy. Feel free to reach out. And with that, I'm going to say peace and love, family. Peace and love.